a friendship that'll never ever end.
Run!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie, yo, 621. Day in the neighborhood. My brothers and sisters, we are back once again, Bean Team. And today, we are going back to Jose Ortiz from Evil Intentions. Back to Evil Intentions, y'all. Hope y'all doing excelente out there today. And I'm glad that you came on back to the channel once again. To F with the Bean. And the title of this video was just, man, let me just read it. Head cut off for being an Asian secret agent wearing pink. The story of Lee Young Chung. Now, I'm just trying to figure out, y'all, my main thing with this freaking crazy title is, why was she decapitated for wearing pink? You know what I'm saying? Because of the color, not even just the color of her skin, the color of the clothes that she got on, man. This one right here is going to be a very freaking wild one. And I'm ready to get into it. But before we get into it, Bean Team, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need, please. We are back to Jose Ortiz from Evil Intentions. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's go.
Over the decades, the city of New York has seen its fair share of horrifying moments take place underground. From tourists losing their lives on vacation, to muggings, to random attacks on innocent people just standing on the platform. It's something that we've heard about time and time again, and it's always been a huge problem with New York City's subway system. In February of 1984, a young and beautiful bride, still new to the city, would lose her life in a horrifying manner after crossing paths with evil, and she was only trying to make it back home to her husband. The reasons behind the senseless slaying will leave those who heard of it with more fears, knowing that at any time, anywhere, they could be next.
Yeah.
New York City has one of the biggest subway systems in the world, with 472 stations across the 5 boroughs. Many horrific events have taken place underground, and a lot of those stories have never been told. Today, we take a much closer look at the city's dark underworld. This is Evil Intentions Subway Stories.
Get whatever you may need. And it had been a while since Jose has did a Subway stores, you know what I'm saying, man? And it's one thing that I want to just point out that I agree 100% with him on, is the fact that one of the major things that make people being murdered so scary to the outside looking in, you know what I'm saying, is because we actually like know or feel like, not even just feel like, we know that it can actually happen to us, and we can feel it too. You can feel it like, man, that same thing that happened to that lady could one day potentially happen to me. You know what I'm saying, man? We are not immune to being freaking murdered in the most craziest ways, just like the victims who actually have been murdered in the most craziest ways. And that's one of the things that I feel like make you fear murder more than anything. You know what I'm saying, man? That is one of the most major things about freaking murder that scare you when you see it happen to somebody else. But I digress. Let's go.
As you exit, please
Lai Young-chung hailed from the Fujian province in China and resided on the Upper East Side of New York City. While today's story takes place in New York City, it truly begins thousands of miles away. The word Fujian translates to happy establishment, and the Fujian province is located on the southeastern coast of China. Most of it is made up of mountains running along the coast and surrounded by endless tea gardens, streams, and rivers. The rivers play a vital role in transportation and the watering of many rice fields that are located there. Fujian has been cultivating rice for centuries, much of the process still handled the same way today. The city of Fuchao, also known as the capital of Fujian, is where 19-year-old Lai Young called home. She was described by those who knew her as a beautiful young woman who was very skilled in sewing and cooking, something passed down to her from her family. She worked with garments back home, spending a lot of her time at some of the factories out there. Lai Young loved it here. It was a place where people spoke to one another often, a place where neighbors were friends and would often have dinner together. While her and her family worked hard, nobody out there was in a hurry. Things revolved around family and making a living. An entirely different lifestyle from those who lived in bigger cities or in the States. Lai Young was known to sometimes be shy around people she didn't know too well, but she was also very lively, always cheerful, and if she knew you, she was loving and more than happy to talk to you. While she loved her home in China, Lai Young had plans of coming to the States to get a fresh start. It was a plan she had been crafting with someone that she was dating for a while, a man named Tin Wan. They were very much in love, and pretty soon, they would take their relationship a step further, coming to the States and moving in together in New York City. Lai Young and Tin Wan met in Fuchao while they both worked at an electronics factory. Their hours were long and the work was tough, but they enjoyed each other's company more than anything. Tin Wan made his way to New York City first, finding an apartment with his father on East 89th Street on Manhattan's Upper East Side. He was a hard worker and was using his hard-earned money to help bring Lai Young to the city while she continued to work back home. Toward the end of 1983, she would end up finally making her way to the Big Apple, moving in with Tin Wan and his father. The city was a huge change for her, as something she couldn't quite get used to. Everything was so fast-paced. Nobody really spoke to her. It was like everyone was hurrying to get to where they needed to be. This was an entirely different scenario from what it was like back home, where everything was much slower and people took time to get to know each other. Still, she was happy to be in the company of the man she was in love with, and the young couple was very excited to be entering this next chapter of their lives together, spending every moment with one another. Lai Young also had her sister out here, who was already married and had the same goal as she did, to create a life for herself here and to build a family. The change in lifestyle was not easy. As soon as Lai Young made her way to New York City, she found work at a garment factory, but she would quit only after a few weeks because frankly, she was scared of the neighborhood that her job was in. At the time, certain parts of downtown Manhattan and the Canal Street area were worse than others. She would often see people hanging around the factory, creeping around in the few alleyways and in the elevators of the job. She didn't know English, and she was a small woman, only weighing about 100 pounds, so she felt vulnerable and wasn't sure if she would ever run into problems or be met with threatening behavior, or worse.
And I can understand, I can totally understand why she would quit that job. You know what I'm saying, man? Because she not even freaking from here, first of all. You know what I'm saying? The only reason she is here because she really in love with this guy. This has got to be true love. She really got to love this guy to even move over here to the United States. And then, like Jose just said, her small physique, she a little small woman. And also the fact she can't speak English. You know what I'm saying, man? And the fact that she come from a place where it's very slow, very mellow, not a lot of people around, and then she go to New York City, the Big Apple, you know what I'm saying, where there's people moving back and forth, boom, 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 whole bunch of, to her, that ish look like chaos all around her, you know what I'm saying, man, and she not used to that freaking chaos, so I can understand why she would quit that job, man. I just hate what end up happening to her later on in the story. But let's keep going, y'all.
She tried her best to stay to herself. Relocating to the Big Apple was a serious adjustment, and she was trying as much as she could to get used to it. But that feeling of fear was something she couldn't quite shake. Aside from her feelings about the city and not being too fond of it, life was going in a good direction for Lai Young. On January 2nd of 1984, after just a few months of being in the city, her and Tin Wan would become married. They held an intimate ceremony at a restaurant in Chinatown called Chai Mer. About 100 people attended, and it was said to be a very festive and happy time. Friends and family who had gotten to know the couple saw that everything was going well for them. They were on their way to creating a happy life together. It was everything they'd been planning on since being back home. A few weeks after their wedding, Lai Young told relatives that she believed she was pregnant. She hadn't been to a doctor yet, so there was no official confirmation, but her body was changing in a way that she wasn't used to. She was excited at the idea of becoming a mother, happy to be welcoming her first child into the world. Now, life in the big city wasn't the easiest to get used to, but Lai Young and Tin Wan made it work for them. By mid-February of 1984, she was hired at a new job, the Ting Kiang Sportswear Company, located at 161 Grand Street. Now, this was to be a new start for her, and hopefully a better experience. But less than 2 weeks after getting hired, Lai Young's worst fears would become a terrible reality. The hours at the new job were once again long and difficult, but at the time, it was all that was available to her. The factory was in a huge 5th floor loft, where during the day, many women, just like Lai Young, would spend endless hours sewing everything from dresses to shirts. The big windows of the loft offered a view of the busy city streets down below. The women who worked here weren't getting paid much, only about $7,000 to $8,000 a year, about $150 a week. It wasn't a lot, but it was all that was available. Lai Young was always at work early. Normally, she would spend her day at work until about 5 p.m., where she would then take a short walk to the Canal Street station to catch the 6 train uptown.
Man, did y'all hear what Jose said? I just gotta stop it, man. I just gotta stop it, y'all. Did y'all hear what he said? They was making like $7,000 to $8,000 a freaking year. Now I know this back in 1984, but still, man, come on now. And what you said, $1.50 an hour or something? That is ridiculous. Nowadays in 2024, I'm just gonna speak on me. $8,000 wouldn't even last me no more than, and this at the bare minimum. This mean I gotta be eating Oodle McNoodles for dinner every night, man, for $8,000 to last me 2 months. I could stretch it to 2 months, but after them 2 months, I need some more money, man. And this was what they was making a whole year. That is crazy. But I guess it was, like I said, it was back in the day then. It was kind of like she didn't have a lot of options out here. She is a foreigner that don't even know how to speak freaking English. You know what I'm saying? So it ain't like she could get a lot of jobs. Long story short, short story long. Let's go. That just was just like, what the freak?
Wasn't too long of a ride, but with the packed subways, she would normally make it home at about 6 p.m. This was always the case, but on the evening of February 29th of 1984, Lai Young entered the Canal Street station unaware that this would be her last day on this earth.
Oh.
She walked along the platform of the station, making her way to the far end, standing with many others who were waiting for their ride home. As she stood there, she would find herself within feet of an older man, and he was saying something, words she couldn't understand. Being that she was surrounded by others, and it was such a lively hour, it's safe to assume that she didn't expect her life to be in danger. But that would all change in a matter of seconds. As the 6 train approached the station, as the headlights came closer and closer, this random man who was standing next to her would use all of his strength to shove Lai Young into the path of the oncoming train.
Oh!
There was nothing she could do, and she had no time to react. She would land directly in front of the speeding train, with the wheels and carts running over her and causing her head to become separated from the rest of her body.
Like, why the freak did he do that? I mean, okay, yeah, we got the title saying that it's because wearing pink. What the freak? Man, that ain't no freaking reason. Let me look at this title a little harder, y'all. for being an Asian secret agent wearing pink. Maybe this person thought that she was a secret agent, because it's clear from the story that we got from Jose that she is not a secret agent, unless that's going to be the reveal that he tell us at the end. But man, Lai Young got it hard out here, man. She a regular young woman trying to freaking survive in the Big Apple. She a foreigner. She ain't no damn secret agent. And then the wearing pink part, I still don't understand. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, y'all. I'm just saying though. Why? I didn't even think that was the way that she actually died, was him pushing her onto the freaking train tracks.
The evening commute had now gone from people waiting to get home to hundreds witnessing a grisly and senseless attack and a young woman's lifeless and headless body lying under the train. Her life was taken instantly. She had been in New York City only 4 months before losing her life. Moments after Lai Young was pushed into the tracks, a horrified crowd of travelers on the platform looked on, shocked and unable to process what they had just witnessed. Nothing but Lai Young's pink shoe stood on the platform after, while her body still lay under the train. The man who did it stood there mumbling to himself incoherently. He didn't even try to run. He stood at about 6 feet tall, wearing glasses and a buttoned shirt and cardigan. To those who had just seen everything unfold, it was surprising, because he seemed like such an ordinary person, someone you wouldn't even pay mind to if they walked by you on the street. But of course, you can't ever judge a book by its cover. Frantic calls to police were made, and it looked like the guy had no plans to try and get away. He just seemed to be waiting, while about 100 people formed a wall around him to stop him from running. The monster responsible for the unprovoked attack was a 39-year-old man named John Cardinal. He was said to be a third-grade teacher at PS 123 in Brooklyn, and he resided in Queens, New York with his parents. He was described as a loner who never spoke to anyone or had any romantic relationships, never even said hello to his neighbors, just someone who always kept to himself. One neighbor stated that the only time he ever heard Cardinal's voice was when he asked a neighbor to lower his radio because it was disturbing him. He had a history of mental health issues and had moments where he dealt with extreme paranoia. Like one time in 1978, when he was at a bus stop in Queens, he saw a woman who was also waiting for the bus, and she licked her lips. For whatever reason, Cardinal would get the impression that she wanted to sleep with him, but at the same time, he thought she might be some sort of secret agent working for the government and was after him for some reason. So he walked up to her and shoved her. A group of teenage boys who had witnessed this ended up jumping him because they saw him put his hands on her. He was known to travel to Thailand often and had a strange situation there too. One time, while in a bar during one of his visits, someone there would tell him that they thought it was best if he didn't come back there anymore. Cardinal took this as a serious threat, again from a secret agent. He said he thought a medical team belonging to the Thai government was trying to get their hands on him to, quote, deprogram him. The paranoia didn't stop there.
Yeah, Bean Team. This man just got freaking mental health issues. Like, seriously, man. That's okay. Now the title making sense. Yeah, y'all heard earlier. I was like, what? Maybe he thinks she a freaking secret agent? That ain't his first time thinking somebody a secret agent. You know what I'm saying, man? This man actually got a history of this paranoia or whatever you want to freaking call it, man. Oh, and it's just like it got worse and worse and worse until it culminated in Lai Young having to lose her life. I hope he get life in prison. Please let this man get life in prison. At least he caught. You know what I'm saying? He's so freaking crazy in the head. He didn't even leave or try to run away. I'm glad he didn't. And then shout out to everybody who stayed around and made sure that he wasn't going to be able to leave. But please let this man get life in prison at the very least.
If he saw someone in the street just walking by and they happened to be carrying paperwork or folders, in his mind, they had secret information about him. If someone rubbed their nose while next to him, he believed it meant that he was dirty or that he smelled bad. If someone in the street was carrying a bag, it meant that they had money inside of that bag because they were being paid off to do something bad to him. He also had a problem with the color pink, saying that if the color was near in any way, it meant danger. It seemed that whatever he was into on his own time had gotten the best of him, and everything was a plot against him. Of course, this wasn't the truth. But according to him, he was a target. His mental health was quickly deteriorating, and apparently, his family tried everything to have him admitted to a psychiatric facility because things at home were not normal. He was constantly verbally abusive to his family, cursing them out and not taking their advice. His mother would end up having to lie to authorities, telling them that he hit her in order to get him put into a facility, since a show of potential violence was the only way to take him against his will. He would be diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1982, but even though they tried, nothing they did helped. He would end up spending 45 months on leave of absence from his teaching job between 1979 and 1983.
It's just crazy to even think that he actually became a teacher. You know what I'm saying, man? And I understand the part, like, over time, it just got worse and worse as far as, like, his mental health. It was just deteriorating, or whatever may have you. But it's like, dude, man, just the thought that he even was and then he was a third grade teacher dealing with little kids. You know what I'm saying, man? That is just freaking crazy. This dude right here. Wow.
It would be in February of 1983 when he was cleared by several psychiatrists to return to work. So now he had his job back, once again teaching at PS 123. He was on a common medication to help with his condition at the time, but shortly after getting his job back, he would stop taking the medication altogether, which only made his behavior much more erratic and unpredictable. In January of 1984, Cardinal had a situation at his school where he pushed a child's face into their desk in a fit of anger. Many wanted him to be fired for this, but instead, he was only reprimanded since they called it a, quote, isolated incident. But the next few weeks at school were just as strange. He could be seen walking the halls of the school talking to himself, very withdrawn. He had also completely lost control of his classroom. Due to the mounting issues, a district superintendent would aim to have Cardinal fired again, leading to a hearing with the Board of Education that would be scheduled for March 2nd of 1984, a meeting that would never happen. Cardinal was sure that he was going to be fired at that meeting, so on February 29th of 1984, he left school, took a train into Manhattan, and visited the China Royal restaurant on Division Street. It was somewhere that he went often. Nothing seemed off about this meal or any others he had in the past. As he had his dinner, according to him, a waiter asked him about what he did for work, and he didn't like it. To him, it was just another sign that someone was after him. So he finished his meal and left, walking to the Canal Street station only a few blocks away, the same station that Lai Young would catch her train. It was between 5 and 5:15 p.m., which meant it was rush hour. The station was filled with people. It was here that he saw Lai Young standing at the end of the platform, where the trains would enter from. She was carrying a bag, and she was also wearing pink shoes, which to him meant she was a threat.
And it's so crazy, man, because the title, like, I'm really understanding the title now. It's like it got two meanings, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Not only was he thinking people just secret agents just because they got paper in their hand or they got a folder or something. He think they got some information on him and looking at him or whatever crazy ish that's going on in his brain. But he also just think anybody who wear pink is a danger. You know what I'm saying? So it's like two sides to this freaking coin of this craziness that's going on in this man's brain. And this lady had to end up being the freaking victim of it, man. Ugh.
When he stood behind her, as he mumbled to himself, most of what he said couldn't even be understood. But witnesses stated that they could hear him saying the words, push, push, while he made, quote, semicircles with his hands, as if trying to time the push with the incoming train, followed by him shoving her right into the tracks. Lai Young didn't know English and likely had no idea what he was saying or what this behavior was even about. It happened so quickly that she had no time to defend herself. The conductor operating the train had seen someone or something being pushed into the tracks, but he wouldn't be able to stop in time. Police were called and would arrive shortly after, and when they did, they heard several people telling them that this man pushed a woman in front of the train. Cardinal's response to this was, well, if that's what they said, I did it. As they read him his rights, he paid no attention. It was almost as if he was on another planet, still mumbling to himself and showing no emotion about what he had done. "It's over. It's over. We're even. The game is over," he said as he was being apprehended. He would then start to badmouth the Board of Education and saying that he had to do this to her and was glad that he did. No motive, total strangers to one another. Sadly, while Lai Young had already lost her life, her family had no idea what had taken place. They weren't fluent in English, so it was very easy for them to miss the news reports about the incident. No social media existed, and no connection to anyone on the platform who had actually seen it happen meant that they were in the dark about it. To her husband and sister, it seemed that Lai Young was just missing. Tin Wan had become frantic when he saw the hours go by, and she never made it back home. This wasn't like her at all. She would never be in the streets by herself if she wasn't on her way to or from work. They knew something had to be wrong. Hours later, at around 3 a.m., Tin Wan and family members went to the 5th precinct located on Elizabeth Street to file a missing persons report. Through an interpreter, Tin Wan would do a good job of describing what his wife was wearing and the jewelry she would have had on at the time, a few gold chains and her wedding ring. When being told the route that she would normally take back home, the officer taking down the information recalled an incident from hours before. He would make a call to the lead detective working Lai Young's case and told him that there were people at the precinct who were possibly related to the young woman. The lead detective would tell Tin Wan to come to the morgue the following morning at 9:30 a.m. to see if he could identify the body, but he never explained how her life was taken. When he arrived at the morgue, Tin Wan was immediately overwhelmed with debilitating grief. It was said that when he saw her head, which had been cut off by the speeding train, he collapsed to the floor. The lead detective stated that he was, quote, like a piece of vegetable, almost despondent. He was asked if he was sure that this was his wife. He replied with a heartbreaking, yes, just about the worst moment imaginable. Just a few short months before this, the plan was to spend the rest of their lives together, to live the American dream and find success, to build a family. Those dreams were now long gone, taken away the second that Lai Young crossed paths with Cardinal, a man whose everyday life revolved around theories and paranoia. Instead of raising their first child together, Tin Wan and the rest of her loved ones were now in the process of preparing funeral services to lay the beautiful and lively 19-year-old to rest.
This shit so sad, man. And I just thought about something too, y'all, man. I want to go back to what I was saying earlier, man. Jesus Christ. What I was saying earlier about how one of the things about murder that make you like really fear it, like one of the major things is that you think it can happen to you. Like not even think, I keep saying think, but you know that the same way, like any of us could have got pushed off that freaking train track or whenever. I never been down at a subway because subways don't exist in my world, y'all. Seriously, not down here in the South. But if I was living in New York, or if I was to ever go visit New York one day and I'm standing at a sub and down in the subways right along the tracks, any freaking crazy mother elf could just push me or y'all or anybody. You know what I'm saying? It can happen to you. But now I'm starting to think about another reason. Even if it don't happen to you, just the thought that it can happen to your brother, happen to your sister, your mama, your daddy, your family, your friends, your husband, your wife. You know what I'm saying? That ish is scary as elf too. Because when Jose was talking about that he went to the morgue the next day to go see Lai Young and have to see her head decapitated. Like, come on, man. I would never want to have to go down to the morgue and see one of my freaking family members in that way. That murder issue is just terrible, man. It's one of the most terrible things in the world. Maybe number one. Like, man.
Monday, March 12th of 1984, a funeral service was held for Lai Young Chung at the Eng Phuc Funeral Home located on Mulberry Street. Hundreds of family members and friends attended, and others who had seen and heard about it all over the news came to pay their respects. They were able to position her head and body together for the service. Her body was laying there, with a dark veil covering her face. Many who attended stated that she looked to be at peace. It was said to be a beautiful service that was followed by a procession where her body was driven through Chinatown. It was a beautiful way to pay respects, but it was also truly devastating. A painful reminder that Lai Young was no longer here. and the future that her and her husband had planned together would never be possible. The procession made its way to the Canal Street station where it all took place. Tin Wan and others made their way to the exact spot where she was pushed, and he held a 3-foot stick of incense over the tracks, meant to be a symbolic gesture to help take her soul away from where she drew her last breath, away from the tragedy. After a few minutes at the location, the procession continued all through Chinatown. Her body was then taken to Evergreen Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York, for burial. The tragic and savage slaying of the young and innocent Lai Young would draw a lot of attention to a growing issue in the city at the time: unprovoked, violent behavior against Asians. It felt like her slaying was a part of a much bigger issue. With this huge loss and horrifying details of it all, the only thing that was left was seeking justice. By mid-September of 1985, a trial was underway for John Cardinal, a trial full of tense moments and details that Lai Young's family did not want to hear. As expected, emotions ran very high, as did the anger and frustration. After his testimony, Lai Young's husband would find himself overcome with emotion and try to rush Cardinal, who just sat at his defense table, staring into space and talking to himself. A court officer would step in before Tin Wan could get to him. The defense would try to paint the picture of Cardinal as a good man, someone who served in the Peace Corps in Thailand in the 70s. But in doing so, it would be revealed that Cardinal had other paranoid thoughts. He would end up saying that he felt like there were secret groups of Asian agents who were following him around the city to try and stop him from dating Asian women, which made absolutely no sense. And this was, of course, not true at all. To say the least, the defense's strategy wouldn't work. The judge stated that Cardinal was obviously mentally ill, but the assistant district attorney overseeing the case would argue that the sentence needed to fit the crime. She said it would send a message to others that being sick or mentally ill didn't mean it was open season for people to get away with heinous crimes.
Exactly.
Justice needed to be served, and on November 1st of 1985, Cardinal was sentenced to 22 years to life in prison for the slaying of Lai Young Chung. Till this day, John Cardinal remains behind bars at Orleans Correctional Facility in Orleans County, New York, and he'll be eligible for parole next month, November of 2024.
Wow.
What took place in February of 1984 should have never happened. A woman who had dreams for herself and her loved ones, just looking to live her life. A young and lively woman just looking to raise a family with the person she loved, slain in cold blood in a horrific attack that nobody saw coming. Her new life, tragically and savagely, cut short. Something that's happened countless times before and countless times after. Innocent people just looking to make it from point A to point B. All of a sudden, thrown into a world of horrible pain and tragedy, losing their lives because one person took it upon themselves and thought it was their time. Lai Young Chung should have been here to feel her child grow inside of her, to grow accustomed to this new big city life, the streets that she often had her doubts about. She should still be here today, but instead, her worst fear came true. The feelings she had about the city, the way she feared being here at times, it was something that stood with her loved ones. It was an awful reminder of what took place. It was almost as if she knew that one day she would find herself on the receiving end of something horrible. And unfortunately, she was right. If alive today, Lai Young Chung would be 59 years old. Rest in peace, Lai Young Chung, and my deepest condolences go out to her family and loved ones. You aren't forgotten.
Man, rest in peace to Lai Young Chung, man. Seriously, man, you are not forgotten, like Jose said, y'all. And what he said, she'll be 59. I'm pretty sure what by now, way before now, man, if she was to be able to live, she would have adapted to this type of life. You know what I'm saying? The United States type of life, the New York type of life, the New York City, Big Apple type of life. She would have adapted, man, and I think she would have just been a great woman because she had a great heart. She came from a great tight-knit family, you know what I'm saying, man, and just like that just took away before she could even achieve great things in her life, man. Just so freaking terrible. By one of the most craziest mother ever, uckers ever to be a teacher. Like, this just was a mentally ill person who was an actual teacher out here. And that one thing that I didn't even stop the video on that I want to talk about now is the fact that this dude literally got away with shoving a student head into the desk, and they didn't even freaking fire him. They end up suspending him or something, but they brought him back and all this. And then the court date was supposed to happen later on. No, F a court date. He's supposed to been fired on the spot for doing it. Long story short, story long, man. This is not the olden days. Don't you put your goddamn hands on these kids in these classrooms. I know some of them can be bad as hell and can say some of the worst that a adult won't even say. You know what I'm saying? To shock the hell out of you. Like, damn, you talking worse than a freaking 57-year-old goddamn man that used to be a sailor in his life. You know what I'm saying? Cussing like a sailor or whatever. But at the same time, man, you can't put your hands on these kids, man. So he should have been fired a long time ago. Then I just still don't understand how he even really like got the job with his mental illness, man. Like, he was mental for real, thinking that secret agents always around him and watching him, and agents. Every time you see an agent, he think they're secret agents. Every time you see somebody with paper in his hand, he think they got his name, address, and date of birth on it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude. And then you look at it on another side, just the fact that he sees somebody wearing pink. Now all of a sudden they dangerous. Like, what? Like, that was just a double-edged, crazy freaking sword, man. As far as his conviction, y'all, 22 to life. I just hope he stay locked up forever, man. His first time to be able to get out was next month in November of this year, and I hope his parole is just denied. I hope his bail, whatever the word I'm supposed to be using, I hope it's just denied, and he's staying there freaking ever, because he most certainly deserved to. But I digress. I'm gonna go and let y'all go now, man. That was a great video from our boy Jose Ortiz, as always. I appreciate y'all coming on back to the channel, as always. And before y'all leave, as always, just please, as always, hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and do all that if you ain't did that yet. And I'll see y'all tomorrow for another That Chapter Wednesday. And until then, my friends, also remember this. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.